Hello. Oh, music too loud. I'm changing that. Hey Spina, do I make money off of Twitch ads? I do. It does help when you guys watch them. Okay. Move this down. Where did my pen go? Where's my pen gone? It's over there. Found my tablet pen. What was the last thing I drew? I guess it was this one, right? Yeah, let's continue. Hi, Prodigy. Ooh. Glad to have you. What is stopping? Oh. Where do I put this dice tray? Oh yeah, I colored her after stream. My technological nightmare. My Cintiq has a loose, not a loose, but it's just like it doesn't have like a super strong screw for the part where it like tries to hold it down. So I have to like hold it and hope that it actually stays at the level that I want it to, or else it just rises back up again. Hey Sullivan! Love your D&D content you've been doing. Thank you! I've been doing a lot of it. I've been drawing a lot of NPCs. It's been the thing I do in my free time now. It's been very fun. I've been enjoying it. I think I just need to tighten it with like an Allen wrench or something, but I don't know where the screw is, so I'm just gonna have to figure that out at some point. Have you talked much about your campaign? I'd love to hear everything. Is this an OC? Yes! So she is a Star Druid NPC that I will have hopefully pop up in my campaign. I'm still trying to figure out a lot of it. It's a a lot of work. DMing is gonna be wild. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I've been slowly figuring out like a bunch of the like base information. Tojo's been helping me a lot with that. And also just kind of figuring out like what systems I want in place, right? I have a player who really likes fishing in his free time. It's like his hobby, so a part of me wants to put in like a fishing mini game for him. but I'm still trying to figure out like what that will even look like. um and among other things, like I still have to talk with everyone about like their characters and what they really want to see in the campaign before I decide like what goes in it. So I'm trying to get in touch with everyone about like what they're thinking and what kind of story stuff they want, because I'm not a super big like technical person. um I'm not like super good at like min-maxing stuff. I'm just kind of very much color. I'm just kind of someone who like, I like the role play talking aspect of it. I like the character exploration part of it, obviously. And so when it comes to actually figuring out systems for stuff and thinking about like maybe what major monsters or bosses I'd want in certain places, like also like thinking about dungeons and stuff is, yeah. It gets a little further away from like stuff I'm super comfortable doing. And then also like, oh god, I have to make a map. I'll probably run the game itself very much like theater of the mind, because I don't really want to make maps. But I think it's good if I have like at least a general world map, or at least a campaign world map, so it would be the continent that they're traveling in, because it's only on one continent. And specific maps for like notable locations. But yeah. Merry Christmas, Flip. Hope you all are excited for holiday break time festivities. Yeah, like I'd say that technology outside of the continent has definitely gotten closer to like the 1800s in terms of technological revolution, mainly because I want guns. I want flintlocks and stuff. But I don't think the actual continent itself has like aerial traveling. But yeah, except for like dragons are not like a huge, they're not a common thing. It's very rare to see a dragon from this continent, so I like to imagine that like once, if they ever figure out how to make dragons less reclusive in the world, that maybe in the years following the campaign ending, they'll actually start getting like real cartographers doing like maps and stuff, because then they can just like fly the dragon across the continent. They're really cute. Dragon riders are very cute. But yeah, I don't know. It is all definitely like a work in progress for the extent of how much I want to like explore all this stuff, especially before we even do anything. I don't know how much to plan. I want to have enough so that like I'm not inventing new things too fast or too late in, and I'm not like, I don't know. I don't like the idea of not having things semi-planned out as far as what they may or may not encounter, so that I spend less time in the future inventing stuff and more time in the future just planning how it works out. So trying to do that ahead of time. Cool if there's a chance to catch a rare sea creature that gives an item quest or something. Yeah, that'd kind of be the point. Is D&D friendly for those who aren't super creative? I'm always amazed by how much world building and character building goes into it. I'd say it's a fun exercise, especially if you're someone who doesn't frequently do creative stuff. I think it helps when you're in a group with creative people, because they can kind of engage you in a way that will kind of force you out of your comfort zone. But if you don't have people like that, then I think D&D is really, it's difficult to expect D&D to do anything. Has been my experience. Obviously this is coming from someone who like grew up with like those art role play groups and stuff, so I was super excited about the idea of like character role play and character building and stuff like that. But if you're in a group where they would much rather just do combat, and they'd much rather just, you know, constantly go from place to place doing that instead of character building, then like you won't get that aspect to it. So it depends on who you play with for sure. And it also depends on like what you put in and what the other players put in and what the DM kind of puts in individually. Like all those things coming together. So me wanting to DM was definitely like, okay, so I've played like a few games, and now I want to see what it's like when I can decide like the flavor of the game that I want to play. Because I have friends who mention that like they want to do a little bit more role playing, but they kind of don't feel like the campaign they're playing allows them to. And I have gotten into the habit of in my other game with my character Kaisa that you guys see me drawing sometimes, like just last session that we did, my DM had planned like a whole combat encounter, and I don't know if he was just like, yeah, sure, whatever. But he basically let me just like persuasion check and monologue this guy down. Which was like, I don't know, I doubt that was his intention, because I think he wanted always to have like a combat encounter per session. But this guy was like a fire giant, and we would have gotten our ass kicked. So I was like, I should try and talk with him and see where it goes. It ended up working out. So like, I'm super happy with that kind of stuff. But that is mainly because I enjoy it and I look for it and I demand it in the games that I play. So if you don't find yourself amongst like-minded people, then I don't think it's going to be what you expect. There's definitely an aspect to D&D, I feel like, which is just like finding the right crowd that will support like what you're interested in and give you the space to pursue that. Is this gonna be like an NPC card, or are there more of these you'll be doing too? I'm kind of just drawing her to draw her. She'll probably get like a token or something sometime, someday, somewhere. Would I ever consider making a Gumroad bundle of the personal stuff you've been working on stream for the past bit? Probably not. If anything, I would probably give that all to people that sub to the Twitch channel. But I've just been very like casual with it. I'm trying not to think about sharing my work anywhere lately, so it's kind of been my thing for this past bit of time. It helps, I think, for me to very clearly like the thought of sharing or posting not really occurring to me, I think has been a great shift in my mentality. Because like when I draw now, I'm actually really excited by the idea of just like what I'm drawing, as opposed to like I'm excited by the idea of this being a good thing to post if it turns out well, you know? So I've kind of just, you know, I'm not against the idea of sharing my work. I'm also just like trying not to think about it. Yes, I have played Hades. What's your advice to artists who are scared by AI? I am in an industry where I am not worried about what that kind of tech will do for my job. And I think it's irresponsible for people to tell artists to not go into the arts just because of this technology. I won't say that it is unwarranted, but I'm also of the mind that like if all of us just stop doing our jobs because we are concerned about the potential of us losing it, then we will just inevitably fulfill the prophecy that entails. And I'd much rather prove that the work that I do is valuable by continuing to make it, to innovate upon it, because ultimately this is what I want to do. My life is infinitely worse for not having this be what I do every day. So like, while what AI will do to our industry is still a little bit up in the air and still very hypothetical and theoretical, I think the people that are getting scared by it, like, truly, I don't want people to feel like they have to put this craft down because of the potential, like, or even the evidentiary stuff of like, you know, there are definitely certain roles, I guess, being taken over by non-creatives who don't, I don't know, like feel the need to value art even though it factors a lot into their product. But the vast majority of spaces that do value artists, who understand that artists are a huge part of their success and their product, are not willing to entertain AI as a reasonable source of work, because it is ultimately lacking in so many actual fundamentally crucial ways that production artists are unique for knowing how to navigate, knowing how to handle. It's why you have to train to specifically go into production. You can't just like be an artist and be good at this thing. So while I can't say like, hey, this isn't something you have to think about at all, it is something that we have to consider. But also like, this job is phenomenal. Like, I love my work. I love what I do. I love the people I work with. None of them are willing to replace me, right? Because they understand that ultimately they can't ask an algorithm to spit out things in the way that they need without fundamentally implicating their company and the work that they do and the project that they're on legally in some way. There's no safety net, no legal safety net, no guarantee that this technology can sustain itself individually without using work from other people or data sets that it has to be provided, right? That's like a failure when it comes to production and kind of the whole point of my job, which is to help these projects and these companies come up with original content that they can monetize, that they can copyright. So it is a liability for an AI artist to be allowed into that production space. And from my understanding, most places are not willing to entertain the idea at all. So I'm not worried for my job. I am not worried for the people that are around me because they understand and value the work that I do. It is disheartening to see that there are definitely people out there in my industry who don't. But I will never tell anyone, and I don't think anyone should be told that you should just straight up not get into art in the first place. Because I can't say that in good faith. I love what I do. I love the work that I get to make, and I am incredibly grateful that this is an industry that I can be a part of. I think it's fun. I'm never gonna tell anyone to not go into it because I think it's one of the few good decisions I've made with my life. It might not be the smartest, but I really want to see new artists come in and prove again and again that we are incredibly valuable assets to not only the development of these projects, but also the fact that artists are part of culture and that we add to and help create culture in a meaningful way. And we do not continue to do that by telling younger artists to not get into the job. Like, it is incredibly counterproductive, and I am very disappointed in some of those artists that are messaging, whose messages are essentially just being so afraid of the possibility that they refuse to stand up for the art form that they have spent their lives being dedicated to. Like, grow a spine. Like, the rest of us love what we do. We want to have this be here forever. The least we can do is encourage new people that this is still something worth doing, because it is. It really is something that I would never regret doing. Never regret being a part of. So, like, it is a bizarre thought to me that we should be warning people against this career path. I have tried Krita. It was fine. But I was already kind of at a point in my life where I didn't really need a new program, so I just kind of didn't bother with it. Yeah. So, I feel like I have a kind of unpopular opinion about this. Mainly because I don't think I value my work as much as some other people do, and I think it's good to value your work in a certain way. Obviously, I don't post my stuff very often, so I kind of haven't... Like, if they're stealing stuff, like, sure, I guess, I don't know. Like, I think we all deserve genuine ownership over the work that we do, but a part of me is also kind of like, hey, look, so much more people will benefit from seeing the work that you're doing because there's a community that's still out there thriving on the work that everyone's posting, right? And if it does get stolen, like, there's not really much there's never been anything that we could do really about our art getting stolen, right? None of us have... The copyright laws haven't really followed up with this new era of like digital creation. It doesn't know how to parse the nuances of it. So my reaction to my work getting stolen, if I do post it, has pretty much been the same as it has been for my entire lifetime, of just being like, okay, it doesn't devalue the fact that I've posted it, that the people that see it like have, you know, it's a part of the thing that they've seen. It's something that adds to their day, hopefully. I don't know. So like, what it was meant to do, it already did. I would also say, like, you don't have to prioritize posting if you don't need to. Maybe it's good to take some time off from posting stuff and just focus on like work that you actually want to make. And maybe by the time that we have figured out how to deal with copyright from the perspective of a digital artist, like, maybe by that point you'll have so much more work to show. I don't know. I feel like I've always just kind of been like, very lax about like my work. Raposa does like the pencil renders, right? Like the really detailed pencil renders. No, like digital pencil stuff. Doesn't he do traditional too though? Yeah, I mean, the guy only really needs like a good pencil brush to do any of his stuff, right? So like, unsurprising to see. Maybe he found a good pencil brush on Crito. The only reason why I'm using Clip Studio is because of this single G Pen brush right here. The only reason why I'm using Clip Studio these days is because I really like this brush and I've been using it a lot. I just found it randomly in like one of those free assets that you can download from the store. I'm like, this feels great. This feels fantastic to use. I'm just gonna draw a bunch of it. It's been pretty good. It's been slow. Because most of my team is off on break now. Or they started a few days early, so. I've been feeling pretty sick today. So. Ooh, feeling pretty tired. And it's okay. Yeah, I mean, we'll probably just go until the normal time. Not closing my lines is the greatest sin I've ever committed. What are my non-art hobbies? Um, Currently it's honestly just D&D. I've been like learning, watching a bunch of videos about like how people prepare for running campaigns and stuff, and that's just kind of been like my thing that I do when I'm not working. um it's because it's like easy and kind of low what is it, low low stakes. I don't know. I don't have to, it's like there was a point where I wanted to make building figures like my hobby that I did outside of work. But building figures actually requires so much of your like physical mental stamina, and I was just like, I cannot focus for more than like 2 or 3 hours at a time. I have to put this down, and then it has to like sit somewhere open because all the pieces are still out, and I'm like, it's so much stuff. So building it I don't know. I was so hyper focused when I picked it up as a hobby, and I was like, I can't do this. And I would read more. But I tend to like hyper focus when I read. So if I have anything else to do, which I normally do, it's not getting done. I will sit down and read a book until it is over. Nothing else will happen that day. Hey, Galahad. Yeah, I don't know if I'll have the brain capacity for DMing. I'm pretty nervous about that part actually, but we'll see. Hey, Althisia. Oh, I drew her eyes closed. I didn't give her a eye color. I probably should have, but I'm not going to. I don't like using pre-made stuff. I want to make my own things. But I'm trying not to take it too seriously. I'm not like a world builder. I really don't care about world building as much as I probably should. I mainly care about like player relationships and stuff, and character relationships. So like when it comes to actually building the campaign, like the part that I slow down the most is like the story lore part, and I'm more just like, hey guys, tell me what you want to see, and I will just try to figure out how to make that part of the campaign. Because like I have a premise, I've got like basic guidelines for things, but I'm also like, man, I gotta make a map. I gotta plan this shit out. I gotta know where these things are. Dumb. Not my favorite part for sure. I'm very much a character focused person. my job is probably the least truly threatened job that you could go into. Because part of my job is not only just making like options for people, right? I'm not just trying to come up with like types of characters, but part of my job is also to like cater to my art directors and stuff. Like there are tons of people who are watching you make this thing and they're very, very focused on making it work because their jobs depend on this thing succeeding. So like the thing with like AI art is that like it can come up with genuinely cool looking images, right? I'm not gonna say they're like all ugly. They clearly can make good looking stuff, but like that's not really the point of my job, right? I'm not just trying to make cool looking characters. It's part of my job is also like trying to decipher like what does an art director actually want versus what they're telling me, right? When they give me an abstract idea or of a personality a hit, right? Like I need to understand how to parse that, how to make that into physical concepts. When an art director wants the same pose but like a different costume with like a different silhouette, like an AI generator can't make those things because it's just not built to. That's not the point of it, right? It's just gonna come up with an entirely different image. It's not gonna be the same thing. It's gonna require way too much hand holding just to make it work with what I do day to day. So am I worried? No. Like my job is fucking secure because like there's no way for it to currently do all that stuff and not put the company at legal risk for whatever lawsuit in the future happens around this copyright stuff. So I think being a character concept artist is pretty sweet. It's a great job. And it's stressful. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made. And it is not a job I think is going to necessarily have to worry about AI replacing it anytime soon. Unfortunately, I work with some pretty unfortunate people who believe that it should have a place in the workspace, but it really doesn't. And most people who have to work with character designers, are of that belief as well. Yeah, milestone level ups. I cannot be bothered to do any kind of point tracking. Milestone's just fun too. Like, I know some people feel like if they do more in a fight, they should get more points. But it's kind of nice when everyone feels like they can sort of grow together. So, I like milestone. Yes, I am a character concept artist. Currently, John Lamb is doing his best to really champion the stance of artists from a legal perspective. So you should follow his progress as he goes through actual legislation soon. I think he's actually going to go up to Washington very soon to talk to them about how our work is being impacted. I'm not familiar with Proko's stance on AI. Okay. Here is my extremely immature hot take about this. Specifically this. I need art boomers to not go so far into the doomer fear of this thing to then just come out the other side and be like, well, if you can't beat them, join them. Like, that's just fucking coward behavior, okay? Stand up for the fucking thing that you devoted your life to for once in your crafting system in D&D actually be interesting, or would it be just tiresome, you know? Like, I'm sure it really throws off the balance of like the kind of the actual economy of the game, right? Because I think some people have mentioned like really struggling to find a way to what, like getting their players to actually spend money on things instead of just like hoarding it. I was trying to figure out like if I do have like, you know, a fishing mini game, it would make sense for it to be like for there to be some form of a crafting system to use resources, unless you just like sell those resources back. But I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine like the theoretical economy of stuff to do, right? Like the downtime of it, the downtime stuff, combat, like I don't really know how to parse any of those things, so I'm just kind of like, sounds cool, sounds interesting. I have no idea what any of this means though. Oh, I mean, to be fair, I've only played in games where I basically didn't need to fuck with spell components. I mean, if I were to do crafting, like I would tell people like, hey, if you want to do this, like you have to keep track of this. I will not. I won't. I refuse to do so. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not gonna do it unless someone explicitly tells me that they're interested in doing it. But it's more so just a way to make, like, outside activities be interesting. But if they're not gonna fuck with it, then I won't do it. No, the way that I get rid of my money in my other game is I made my character have a gambling problem. I actually didn't craft any of the guns for Kaisa. I was given them because my DM kept saying that crafting one would be very, very difficult. So I haven't done that yet. But I have crafted different types of bullets. So yeah. Did they give a release date on? Well, I guess it's 1 D&D, right? There's not really like 6th edition? For some reason, I thought you already played Sekiro. Do I like art museums? I think in my more recent years, I've started to appreciate them in a way that I didn't used to. I think because I like a wider range of art now. So yeah, I'd say I like them. But specifically, like, not contemporary ones. Oh, I would love to see a sergeant in person. think for me, the dream would be to actually see an Alphonse Mucha in person. Specifically, the work that he did later in his life. I would love to see the giant murals that he did. But they are in one place and one place only. And I cannot visit. They're in his hometown, I believe. Yeah, the Slav Epics. They're in Prague. I would love to see them. I feel like if I did see them ever in my life, I feel like I'd just cry. I'd sit down right on the floor of the museum and just start crying. Same if I ever saw like a Gustav Klimt one. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, think of what it would be like to see these pieces that have raised me in a fashion. It would be quite nice. Good choice. Do you have a way that you've memorized the muscles and bones of the body? Did you tackle like an assignment or something else? I guess like an assignment. I don't really know how to describe how I memorized it. Beyond, like, there are muscles that were on like the surface level that I focused on, that I felt like were the ones that made the most impact on like the silhouette, right? So stuff like the deltoid, trapezius, obviously like hamstrings, all the muscles on like the front of the thigh, like latissimus dorsi and the abdominal muscles. Like those are important ones to memorize. Like knowing that the rhomboids are like underneath a bunch of overlapping muscles near the arm, like that kind of stuff you can sort of learn later on if you wanted to. All of the muscles in the forearm I don't pretend to understand or really know. I always get them wrong. But I picked out the ones that I felt like were the most obvious and the most apparent when you look at the average human body. And I try to give each of them like, or try to understand what each of them did, what their purpose was, or what they helped the body to do. And I tried to connect them with that purpose, right? So remembering that the deltoid is called the deltoid because it splits into like a delta, like 3 different heads. And that kind of helps you sort of look at it from the perspective of like, this is not just like a shoulder cap, right? It's these 3 individual sections that kind of overlap on top of each other and have slightly different shapes. And that's how they kind of help create that mass that is the shoulder without actually just being this like round, smooth muscle. So looking at the muscles themselves and like really pinpointing which ones are the most impactful, the ones that do the most overtly, I'm really focusing on those. With bones and stuff, like, you also, I feel like, generally learn what bones are the most important. It's the ones that they tend to teach you in anatomy classes, but like, you know, just your basic like skull, parts of the skull, rib cage, clavicle, sternum, your humerus, your ulna, is it radius? What's the other one called? It's not radius. Your ulna and your fucking the other one. I cannot think about it right now. Radial. I'm blanking on the name. The bones. Is it called the? I got it. It is called the radius. Okay, so I wasn't tripping. I was like, why is it? The radius is not the name, right? It is the radius. Okay, yeah. So the ulna and the radius, the bunch of bones in the center of your palm, which you don't really need to know specifically how they work or whatever. But it's, you know, the bones near the palm, then your phalanges, right? And then you got right clavicle, sternum, rib cage. You got your vertebra, which you can separate into the different parts. I think there's like lumbar, thoracic, and then the one at the bottom, which I always forget. Or no, lumbar is at the bottom. It's the top. See, I don't know them that well as much as I thought I used to. Cervical, thoracic, lumbar. Yes. So cervical, top C to 7, C1 to C7, thoracic, I think it's like 12 vertebra, and then lumbar, which is like 5. At the very bottom. You got the rib cage, then you got your pelvis, different parts of the pelvis that you could know, right? Like the pelvic crest, anterior, superior, iliac spine, stuff like that. And knowing like pubic symphysis, right? The ischium, which are the two little loop-de-loops at the very bottom. The sacrum, coccyx, which are like the tailbone. You got the great trochanter, which is kind of the knob at the very tip of the femur. Then going down from the femur is the tibia and the fibula. Then you get to another bundle of bones, which I don't give a shit about. And you got your tarsals. So, like, those are all the bones that I care about. Those are the bones that I bother to remember. And I allow that to inform the rest of my anatomical knowledge, which is figuring out how the muscles then lay on top of it, right? So it's kind of just sort of a memorization game, but it's also kind of trying to pinpoint, like, when I look at a human body, what muscle am I looking at in this specific part? Is that muscle? Is that fat? Or is that just, like, posing? You know, whatever it is. And trying to connect those clues, those context clues. Once you've, like, attempted to apply the information enough, I feel like there's a certain point where you start to recognize, like, oh, this shape keeps popping up in people's drawings. Maybe what they're actually trying to convey is, like, this muscle that I've been trying to learn. And I think at that point it kind of starts to come together a little bit. I am feeling a little under the weather today, but otherwise I have been fine. Do you have any advice on how to get the most out of live art mentorships? I say, is this like a private mentorship? Or are you doing it with other people? So I'd say like I don't really know how it's structured, but for me at least, I think it's good to spend a lot of the time that you're with them, like spend it either like really, I don't know if they have like a curriculum that they're trying to teach you, but like spend it, I would say spend it really like thinking about they're targeting specific questions that are, they're not just like general, you know, oh, how do I get better at this? Like ask them very specific things that are less macro and a little bit more focused in on something. So tell them like what your goals are, right? I want to get to this point at this time or whatever. And sort of let them know what you're trying to accomplish with it, whether or not it's like a stylistic thing or if it's just like a foundational thing. And then spend most of that time like really either getting like a demo where they show you if it's difficult for them to describe, or coming prepared every single time with like lots of questions that you'd want to ask them. Maximize that time, not just asking for generic advice, but also like very specific advice on, you know, if this is my goal for my work, like how would you recommend I go about this? In your opinion, like what is sort of the way that I should be framing this thing, or how should I think about this? Mindset is like a huge part of development, I think, or of anyone's development. So ask them like how they approach certain problems, how do they work through things, might be helpful. I also think that just like, I don't know, it really depends on the mentor, the kind of relationship you have with them, but really just trying to ask them stuff beyond like actual technical advice, but just being like, you know, how do you approach the problem of like recognizing you're not, the skills that you currently have aren't suitable for the work you're trying to do? Like how do you, when you come up with the problem, or you come upon the problem of I don't have the necessary skills for this, how do you solve that? How do you go about embarking on learning something that you're not familiar with, or how do you reinforce stuff? What's your opinion on studies? How do you do them? How do you make them useful? How do you make them poignant and intentional? And how do you go about evaluating your own work, right? Like how do you judge whether or not the work you're doing is getting to that space of really hitting what you want? Or how do you approach work that maybe isn't turning out the way you want? What's their opinion, philosophy on, you know, that artist journey, or maybe even just like, what's their approach to work, getting professional jobs or whatever? Like, how did they start? How did they do all these things? Very specific, pointed questions is kind of like how I imagine you'd get the most out of a mentorship. Because there are so many ways to just ask, like, the ones that they've probably heard a lot, right? How do you get better? How do you improve? How do you learn? But getting very specific about, like, maybe their experiences with it. How they chose to go from, like, if you point out a piece in their work, being like, hey, like, I was really curious how you were able to, like, did you use reference for this? If so, like, how did you incorporate that reference? How did you... if you use references at all for any of your work, like how do you balance like using references and also coming up with like original stuff? More specific the question, the better. But I don't know, I like be honest with them too. Yeah, you'll do fine. I don't really know how those are meant to go, but don't worry about doing it right and just try to make it relevant to you, right? Ask the questions you want to ask. Get those demos, maximize your time. Don't worry about bothering them, like just ask them like, hey, these are questions that I have not been able to answer myself or find answers elsewhere. Please answer these for me, and I will be happy to do so. been feeling it. Now hydrate. Waffles, thank you for the tier 1 sub for 4 months. Thank you so much.
l'encre a disparu.
C'est les bottes de cette lieue, cette phrase.
What is this, French? Oh, it's over. They wanted to end it with romantic language. Disgusting. 4, fantasy sandwich. Now, there's a time in my life where I always wanted to be good at drawing food. So that was really cool. And then I actually tried it. I don't have the patience for this stuff. I do not. No patience. I think they come in little, I guess, video clips? I imagine them moving, but like not for very long, and I'm not very good at it either. So I kind of just do it up until I get like the image of what I want to draw, and then kind of stop thinking about it that way. How do you study expressions? I think it helps kind of to like stand in the mirror and really do the expression yourself. Like watch yourself contort your face, how it feels, right? If I'm ever in like a really sad mood, or like if I start crying and stuff, I'll like, a part of me will go into like a bathroom, kind of just like watch and see what happens to a human's face when they're like in a lot of pain, or when they are, you know, when it's puffy, when like my eyes are watering, all that kind of stuff. I'll watch how other people react to that kind of stuff. Watching movies is also a great way to do this. It's really about like, beyond learning the cues for what a certain expression might have, like knowing that when someone is feeling a negative emotion, they might tend to scrunch their face, or or angle their eyes a certain way, or if they are really happy, they might crinkle their eyes, or raise the tips of the edges of their mouth or whatever. Like, other than knowing those things, I think there's also an aspect to it that's like knowing how it feels to make that expression, and feeling that emotion as you're drawing it, right? When poses and expressions are disconnected, it's because they were thought of independently of each other. They weren't thought of as like one cohesive unit. And so if you're going to try and make these poses and facial expressions mean anything when they're next to each other, you have to also be willing to be in the space with that emotion, right? When a character is feeling anguish, you have to kind of allow yourself to also feel that kind of emotion, to feel like the tension that you experience when you're going through that form of grief, right? You don't have to be in that mood to draw it, but you kind of have to be willing to think about the kind of tension that happens. Or when someone's in the middle of a movement, like feeling that dynamic kind of sense of weightlessness that happens, and trying to replicate that when you're just trying to draw one moment out of so many requires a level of empathy, of like feeling that movement, of engaging with that feeling, of recognizing like what's being pulled forward, what is momentum kind of dragging through as you go from point A to point B, and what point in that journey from point A to point B of pose A to pose B, like, is that most cleanly conveyed, right? Not every pose in a series of movements is going to be the best form to indicate that they're doing this thing. So if you choose a pose that is too early or too late in the cycle, it might end up looking forced no matter how you draw it. But there's kind of a point in which you get all of the necessary information that you need, and you can, convey all the things that you want to convey without actually having to describe every part of the movement to get the point across. So it requires a lot of mimicry, right? I think you really need to feel the weight of a pose, feel the weight of the movement of doing something. That's why it helps to kind of actually like do the movement yourself, to even kind of replicate a slight bit of it, whether or not that's just like moving your arm and trying to do that big arc or whatever, just so that as you draw it, you're not just trying to draw the physical appearance of it, but you're actually trying to experience it a little bit. Once you get that part of it, right, it's then merging the two aspects of, I know this expression or this pose has very specific markers, right? A dynamic pose is not going to have super harsh lines. All of the limbs are going to kind of flow into it because they're kind of in motion. All these pieces, all these interlocking joints are working together to like move the body somewhere. When a body is in motion, it doesn't have the like cognizance and the ability to be super rigid and super locked as a character that's like actually freezing and posing in a way. You're not going to get the same level of stiffness, right? So if your poses are feeling stiff, it's probably because the pose that you picked is not moving through that motion in a way that feels convincing. It might be stuck trying to, create a shape that it's not actually, that's not actually in line with the movement that the pose is being pulled through, right? So you're picking a pose, but you're not picking the moment in time. So that pose just feels like it's a static image versus like just something that comes before and after another like moment in time. How you kind of help that is really focusing on like, where is this movement starting, where is it going, and really imagining all the different moments in between, right? Looking at that and thinking, okay, maybe my shoulders are a little too stiff, because as this person is like leaning like forward, one of my shoulders should be angled forward more, but like still in a relaxed position maybe. So and the back leg, maybe I bent it too much. Now it just kind of looks like they're lunging, but they're not supposed to. So maybe look at the angles of your line of action, or all of these different parts of your drawing which convey a certain level of tension, a certain level of just like just a certain level of dynamic movement, right? Looking at the poses that you draw that are too stiff and seeing like, oh, is it because I raised the shoulders too high, which is usually the reason why it looks stiff. Are the shoulders too high? Are the angles at which the limbs are like facing or moving feel too weighty, too low? Does it feel like they kind of like got dropped in it, now they have to hold it? You know, there's a certain level of muscle tension that has to happen in those instances. Watching videos of people moving, watching like movies, doing figure studies from movies is always very nice. But also just kind of like trying to do more gestures as well if your poses are super stiff. Because there's nothing that's gonna quite stiffen up a pose more than not being ready to sort of stylize a pose, because the way that we draw it is fundamentally different than the way it's presented, right? The idea that like even if you draw it perfectly to how it looks like in real life, the fundamental truth is that we're drawing things. No one's gonna take our drawing as being more realistic than the thing that we see. So we have to somehow bend the rules occasionally to make our drawings feel closer to reality by making it less like reality. Exaggerating a pose sometimes makes it feel more alive, because we're taking advantage of what we perceive as being truth, knowing that this person is lunging forward, but really pushing that pose a little bit more makes it actually feel like we feel the weight, we understand the kind of stretch that they have. And it's that slight level of knowing how to draw this pose in a standard way, and then also knowing how to push it a little bit from an artistic perspective. That's gonna help make your poses not just feel like static images, but this fact that it's a lived thing. You felt this pose, you lived through it, and now you're expressing the feeling of kind of being this character, of living this character, just as you will convey how you express this character through making expressions yourself and learning how to convey those emotions on your own face. Which is a very long-winded way of getting back to the point of living through the work that you do a little bit. Hey, Abby. I come back on the 30th. So the first week of I almost said July, of January, I will be back. I will be without a computer for a little bit over the holidays. Okay. Any movie or web series recommendations? No. I haven't watched a ton of stuff lately. I haven't watched anything lately, actually. I have a song list. also the Japanese word for love. Or no, Chinese word? I mean, it's the Chinese word for love as well. Right? Is that the Japanese word for love? It's definitely the Chinese one. Okay, well, because like in Chinese, you also say I love you, so, or love, I guess. So both languages work. You look good. It is this video. Which is a Christmas playlist. Oh, forgot to tell you guys. I did the talk for my high school the other day, and it went really well. They all really liked it. It was really crazy. I've never been asked to sign things before, but they had me like sign their like I don't know sketchbooks or whatever. It was very cute. I did end up finishing the presentation that I kind of showed you guys a sneak peek of. And I talked about what I do as a professional character designer, expectations for being one, as well as the kind of expected portfolio elements that you'd want to have in your portfolio to apply for the job. So I focused on that because they ended up asking a lot of like very job related questions and not so much college ones. So it seems like it's something they were interested in. And they liked it, so it went well. I might do a read through of it and actually like record it and put it on my YouTube channel. Just cause yeah, like I don't really know if I'll like give the talk again, so now I have this presentation that I made. So I might do that. Probably when I come home from the holidays though. Or anyone that might be interested. And they have good watercolor brushes. Radiance? Don't know if I know what you mean by gradient. Um, I don't know how to answer that except I guess learn like the difference between like what does it mean for something to have a very sharp gradation and a very soft one. So like the difference between like an area like this, right, where the gradient is relatively small between like the two areas, and an area like this where it's a lot more gradiated. Like, what does that say between the two shapes, right? Well, this higher level of gradation, that softer transition, indicates that the form that it's rolling over is much smoother in terms of like how fast it falls off. So this is indicating that the form is much rounder, much smoother. It's not having to quickly transition on to a plane that's facing too distinctly away from the light source so that it doesn't catch any light at all. Versus a level of gradation like this indicates that there is a much sharper angle that I'm trying to convey. Other than that, though, like, that's really ultimately all you're trying to say with blurred edges when you shade. And it's controlling the shape of that shadow so that not only is it conveying the right amount of roundness and form, but it also has the right shape, right? It's also the right curvature. It has the right angles that you're trying to communicate. You have it be soft in areas and then sharp in others. It's what people call edge control, right? The edges of your shadows. Knowing when things are really, really light and then when things can kind of just like fade off. That is the choices, those are the choices that you make when you're trying to convey depth and form through shadows. So how do I practice it? You kind of start by making everything fundamentally shade the same. You shade everything basically in the same format, no matter what material it is, no matter what lighting it is. And then you start to learn which material communicates like that form shift better. A satiny material is going to be way more reflective, and it has a lot higher sheen, and so it's a lot less clear what the kind of soft general shape of it is. It's a lot more distinct, all of the individual peaks and ridges. But like a soft wool, for example, like a soft wool fabric, is not gonna have too many big like dips and shadows and stuff. It's gonna have a lot more edges in comparison to satin or something of the kind. where you really see that slow shift and turn, and so the edges of your shadows are going to be much softer in comparison. Not to say that like certain lighting scenarios won't make harsh shadows on those types of fabrics, but it's more so just like considering what it says about your lighting scheme and the form that you're painting, to have these like big, you know, stretches of soft radiation and what that implies. Like, that's what you should be focusing on when you are talking about shadows. Oh, what? It just stopped. Okay. I will restart my playlist, I suppose. Why did you suddenly stop? We lost grooving rights, clearly. I need... No, I'm gonna skip this. This one also says... I wish these mixes were more consistent in volume, but they refuse to be. Priscilla. Art as live performance? I don't particularly have any thoughts about that. I don't know. I don't know. Sure. Maybe it is. It doesn't particularly I guess like compel me to consider it further, though. If you consider it such, then sure. I mean, the question is thought on art as live performance, not live performance as art. For your information, I love Broadway musicals. So, I don't know where the insinuation is coming from. Oh. Thank you for the tier 1 sub for 25 months. Or over a year. Over 2 years. For some reason I thought a year was 24 months instead of 12. It's 24 for 2 years, not 12. Thank you for 2 years. A little over 2 years. This is what I get. Same. It's been good. Pretty much just coloring, drawing some stuff. I am pretty low energy today, so nothing too crazy. Indeed they are. I'll have the VOD for you to watch. Thank you, Curry Bread. How's your art changed from when you started streaming to now? This music is very loud. Let's see, when did I start streaming? I started streaming really early because I streamed back in like livestream.com era of streaming. Like 2014? I got on Twitch 2016, I think. So my art from 2014? I mean, it's changed a bit, quite a bit. Let's see, do I know where all my art is? It's probably on my Tumblr, if I'm gonna be honest. I don't want to go on Tumblr, maybe it's on DeviantArt. I don't ever want to go on Tumblr ever again. Is this? Oh yeah, well, so this was 2014. Let's see. Quite a bit actually from 2014. Sheep. Do I need just like line drawings? Oh yeah. This stuff. I like looking through my old stuff. Oh. DeviantArt just crashed. Well, good thing I got some stuff. Yeah, I mean this is all stuff from when I was 2014. So I was 16 at the time, I think. I did a lot of painting, but occasionally I did some sketches, and as you can see, my sketches were whatever they were. So I started streaming around this era of art, and then most of my stuff after this you can see on Instagram, pretty much, because I started my Instagram like 2015. And then, you know, now it is what it is. Um, my old art? Not. I mean, I guess. I don't know. I don't think too much about it. I quite like seeing my old art, because it's nice seeing how far I've come. I think it's a lot more embarrassing to show them my current stuff. Mainly because a lot of them end up just being like, oh, so you just kind of like draw the same thing that you've been drawing like your whole life, which is just like little people on a page. It's like, yeah, basically. You get tired of drawing how and need a break. When you're tired of drawing and need a break, how do you do it without losing skill when you finish your break? I spend most of my breaks away from actually drawing, still looking at art that I like and still kind of thinking about the kind of art I want to make. I think when you're not drawing, it's a perfect time to really be thinking about, like, you know, what have you not been able to accomplish yet, even though you've been kind of working at it and really improving. I think it's really easy to get caught up in the whole, like, draw all the time, and you don't really take the time to not draw and not think about, you know, all of the other elements that have an important role to play in your career, but you don't spend time or make time for them because you're constantly trying to improve your technical skill. So I like kind of just reevaluating what kind of art I like, what kind of art I'm trying to work towards, what I'm trying to accomplish, what skills I still have left to learn. And I like finding new artists to kind of get me back into the swing of really enjoying art and looking forward to it. I like finding artists which kind of inspire me to think of ways that I can improve my art in ways I haven't thought of, or even a style that I think is really charming or really cool. I spend a lot of my time looking at art anyway, regardless of what I'm doing. And I love finding new artists on like there's like a bunch of sites that are about trying to collect like high quality images of classical paintings and classical artists. And so sometimes I'll just like go through and find like a random artist that I hadn't heard before that died sometime in like the 1700s. That's cool. It's like they only have like a couple of their pieces, but then I can like Google them and try to find more stuff. It's really neat. I think it's absolutely possible to do a lot of your growing and kind of maturing when you're not drawing, so that when you go back to it, you're ready and you're prepared, and it's not so much about like the technical skill, but also like your approach to art and the things that you want to do and accomplish are a lot clearer or a lot easier to kind of frame in your head, right? I think people are really afraid of like getting worse when they stop drawing. It is just a matter of practice, right? Like if you get out of practice, like you have to take some time to get back into it. But it's not like you completely forget what you learned when you take a break, right? You still have all that knowledge. So even if your hand needs some time to get used to it, it's not like you really go down in terms of like skill. It's just that the things that you do, it comes from a different place, right? So I'd say don't really worry about losing skill. Just, I think worrying about that is going to make your break useless, because you're going to be worried about like, oh no, when I go back to drawing, I'm not going to be able to do X thing or Y thing, and I've been working so hard to learn that, and then you get so caught up on it that you just end up not taking a break at all. Just don't think about it. It's fine. You'll be fine. Take a break. Give yourself time to miss drawing and then come back to it once you feel like it. I don't consider it research. I just consider it like nice art that I find that I didn't know about. Because I'm bad with names, so I never remember people's names, artist names. So I always find them again, but it's nice. Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about Clip Studio is that it can kind of do it for you. So areas like this, sometimes it'll do it, sometimes it won't. Like that didn't. Oh, it's because I didn't do this. So, it can kind of close gaps for you. But sometimes the way that I draw is not very conducive to using, like I have a gap right here. I could close it right before I paint bucket, but Clip Studio makes it a lot easier to do that. So that's why I use Clip Studio for like base color stuff when I'm gonna paint something. But it really just kind of depend. I don't really like thinking about keeping my lines clean when I'm just drawing, so I deal with the consequences later is my general modus operandi. Oh, neat. Okay, so it is 10 o'clock and I'm gonna probably lay down once we're done with this. So thank you guys for coming and hanging out. This will be my last stream of the year because I will be traveling home and I won't have a computer basically for the next like 2 Fridays. So I will be back the first week of January. So you know, if you celebrate the holidays, we have a good one, a peaceful one, even if you know, like or don't like going back home to family, or if you are, or staying home, regardless. I hope you guys have a good rest of your year. Hope it's peaceful. Hope you have some time you can do something that you enjoy. Sorry, Silver Soul. You can watch the VOD and feel like you're hanging out with us. But yeah, I will be back first week of January. So on that Friday, hopefully. So, be sure to drop by if you would like to hang out, ask questions, do whatever. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I love you guys so much. I will hopefully not blind you again next time. But yeah, thank you guys. And I love you all so much. I will see you guys next year in 2023, I think. That's crazy. Anyways, love you all. Bye bye.